2 years had passed since humanity walked away from galactic politics, and the great council chamber that had once housed representatives from 47 proud species now held only 12. Desperate survivors. The mighty galactic alliance that had ruled hundreds of star systems for thousands of years was reduced to a handful of broken civilizations clinging to the ruins of their former glory. The chamber itself showed the decay that had spread across alien space. Empty seats were covered in dust, and some had been removed entirely to make room for medical equipment, as several delegates were too sick or injured to attend. Without life support, the grand viewing screens that had once displayed the wealth and power of galactic civilization now showed nothing but static and emergency broadcasts. The Zentari delegate, who had once glowed with golden pride, was now connected to a breathing apparatus that kept him alive. His voice came through a mechanical translator because his natural speech organs had been damaged in the war with the Rillan Empire. The Mokari representative had lost 2 of his 6 arms in a pirate attack, and his blue fur was streaked with gray. The Kardic ambassador was barely more than skin and bones because her people were starving without human agricultural technology. But it was the Vorthan delegate who looked the worst. His once purple skin was almost white and covered with the sores of the plague that had killed over half his species. His tentacles were thin and weak, and he could barely lift them to gesture when he spoke. The meeting began with the Secretary General, a Nixarian floating in a tank that was now cloudy and poorly maintained because the filtration systems had broken down without human engineering support. His voice bubbled with desperation as he called the session to order. "We are here," he announced, "to discuss the final proposal for renewed contact with humanity. Our situation has become critical. We cannot survive much longer without their assistance." Around the room, the 12 remaining delegates nodded with the grim understanding of civilizations facing extinction. The proud species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now faced the reality that they needed human help to survive. The Zentari delegate spoke first through his mechanical voice. "Bucks, our manufacturing capacity has dropped to less than 5% of pre-withdrawal levels," he reported. "Our ships are falling apart faster than we can repair them. Our colonies are losing life support systems every day. Without human rare earth minerals and technical expertise, we will be completely extinct within 6 months." The Rillan ambassador raised one thin blue hand to speak. "Our war with the Zentari has destroyed our home system," she said in a voice that no longer sounded like music but like crying. "We have 3 million refugees living on ships with no planet to call home. Our military is gone, our government has collapsed, and we are being hunted by pirates in every system we enter." The Vorthan delegate tried to speak but began coughing violently. When he finally caught his breath, his words came out as barely a whisper. "The plague has taken 4.5 billion of our people," he said. 6 of our 7 homeworlds are now graveyards. Our scientists estimate that our species will be completely extinct within 18 months. The reports continued, each one more desperate than the last. The Mokari had lost contact with most of their territory and were down to a single overcrowded world. The Kardic were eating synthetic food that was slowly poisoning them because they could not grow real crops. The Thrain had been enslaved by pirates and were being sold as workers on black market worlds. Finally, the Secretary General called for the vote that everyone knew was coming. "We must formally request that humanity return to the galactic community," he said. "All in favor of offering humanity complete equality, full representation, and a formal apology for our past treatment." 12 hands, tentacles, and appendages rose in unanimous agreement. For the first time in galactic history, every single delegate agreed on something. But their unity came too late, and from desperation rather than wisdom. The communication system activated, and for the first time in 2 years, a human face appeared on the main screen. Ambassador Haiyan looked exactly the same as he had when he walked out of this chamber. His hair was neat, his uniform was clean, and his eyes held the same quiet strength that had intimidated aliens even when they outnumbered humans 47-1. Behind Haiyan, the background showed a clean, modern room with advanced technology and comfortable furniture. It was clear that human civilization had not just survived without the galactic community, but had thrived. "We received your message," he said in a calm voice that filled the desperate chamber with both hope and fear. "We understand that you wish to renew diplomatic relations with humanity. The alien delegates leaned forward in their seats, hanging on every word. The Secretary General's tank bubbled with excitement as he prepared to offer humanity anything they wanted. We were wrong, Ambassador Haiyan the Zentari. Delegate said through his mechanical voice, we see that now humanity brought something to the galaxy that we did not understand until it was gone. We were fools to dismiss your people as primitive. We beg you to return and help us rebuild. The other delegates joined in with their own pleas. The Vorthan offered to make humans the dominant species in the Galactic Council. The Rillan promised to give humans any territory they wanted. The Mokari offered to become human slaves if that was what it took to get help. Ambassador Haiyan listened to all their offers without changing expression. When they finished speaking, he was quiet for a long moment. The desperate aliens waited in terrified silence, wondering if humanity would refuse to help at all. Finally, Haiyan spoke. We tried to tell you, he said simply. We offered partnership, we offered friendship. We offered our knowledge and our help freely. You chose to see us as inferior instead of different. You chose to limit us instead of work with us. You chose contempt instead of cooperation. His words hit the alien delegates like physical blows. Each one remembered their votes against humanity. Each one remembered the insults and restrictions they had supported. Each one understood that they had created their own destruction. We will do anything, the Vorthan delegate whispered. Name your terms. We will agree to whatever you demand, Ambassador. Haiyan nodded slightly. Our terms are simple, he said. Full equality in all galactic institutions. Full representation proportional to our contribution. Full respect for human sovereignty and the right to govern ourselves as we see fit. The aliens nodded frantically. Yes, yes, they all said at once. Whatever you want, and most importantly, Haiyan continued, a formal public apology to every human who was dismissed, insulted, or treated as less than sentient during our time in your council. An acknowledgement that human withdrawal was justified, and that the collapse of galactic civilization was the direct result of your prejudice and arrogance. Done, the Secretary General said, immediately speaking for all the remaining delegates. We agree to everything you have, our complete surrender to your terms. Good. Haiyan said with the same calm tone he had used to announce humanity's withdrawal. We will consider your request for renewed diplomatic relations. The alien delegates looked confused and hopeful. Consider, they asked, does that mean you will help? Ushian smiled for the first time in the conversation. But it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who held all the power and knew it. We will get back to you, he said, in a few years. The screen went dark, leaving the 12 surviving alien delegates staring at empty static. They had offered humanity everything they had left, but humanity was no longer in a hurry to accept. The species that had dismissed human patience as weakness now had to learn what real patience looked like in human space. The colonies and fleets continued their expansion into the galaxy, freed from the restrictions that had held them back for so long. Human technology continued advancing at incredible speed. Human society grew stronger and more unified with each passing day. The galaxy had spent years teaching humanity that they were not wanted. Now humanity was teaching the galaxy what it was like to live without them. And the lesson was proving to be more painful than any war, plague, or disaster the aliens had ever faced. They had walked away from talk, and the silence that followed had spoken louder than any words. Could the galaxy regretted their treatment of humanity? But regret was not enough to undo the damage they had done to themselves. Humanity would return to galactic politics eventually, but it would be on human terms as the dominant species in a galaxy that had learned too late to respect them. The age of alien arrogance was over, and the age of human leadership was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was held in a chamber that looked very different from the proud assembly hall where Ambassador Haiyan had walked away 2 years earlier. Half the seats were empty because 16 of the original 47 species had either collapsed into civil war or withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. The remaining 31 delegates sat in a room that felt too big and too quiet without the voices that used to fill it. The Vorthan delegate was not the same proud ambassador who had insulted humanity. The previous one had died in the plague that continued to kill millions of Vorthan people every day. This new Vorthan representative was thin and desperate looking, his purple skin pale and sickly. His tentacles shook when he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of a dying civilization. We must contact the humans, he said, addressing the nearly empty chamber. Their medical knowledge is the only thing that can save our people. We have lost over 2 billion citizens to this plague, and our best scientists cannot find a cure. Around the room, other delegates nodded with the same desperate energy. The Rillan ambassador had dark circles under her black eyes. Her beautiful musical voice now sounded tired and broken. Our war with the Zentari has destroyed half our territory, she reported. We have refugee ships scattered across 20 star systems with no safe place to land. Our people are dying in space because we cannot protect them without human peacekeeping forces. The Zentari delegate, whose golden skin used to glow with pride, now looked dull and gray. Our manufacturing centers have shut down without human rare earth minerals, he admitted. Our ships are breaking down faster than we can repair them. We need human trade or our entire civilization will collapse within months. One by one, the remaining species shared their disasters. The Mokari had lost contact with their outer colonies when the communication networks failed. The Kardik were facing starvation after their agricultural systems broke down. The Thrain were being overrun by pirates in sectors that human patrols used to protect, but when they tried to contact human space, they encountered something that terrified them more than any war or plague. Complete silence. Human territories had become a communication dead zone. No signals went in or out. No human voice had been heard in the galaxy for over a year. Deep in the Sol system, Captain Cheung sat in the communications center on Luna Base, monitoring the increasingly desperate attempts by aliens to make contact. Her screens showed hundreds of messages coming from across the galaxy, each one more frantic than the last. The alien messages ranged from formal diplomatic requests to personal pleas from individual beings begging for help. She had read messages from Vorthan mothers watching their children die from plague, messages from Rillan soldiers trapped behind enemy lines, messages from Zentari engineers watching their cities fall apart. They are offering us everything, sir, she reported to Earth Command. Full voting rights in the Galactic Council, exclusive access to their most advanced technologies, complete control over disputed territories. Whatever we want, they will give us. The response from President Youngsu's office was always the same: too little, too late. They had their chance to treat us as equals. They chose contempt instead. Captain Cheung understood the policy, but sometimes the messages were hard to ignore. She had received a personal plea from a Kardik scientist whose research station was running out of power. The scientist had worked with human researchers before the withdrawal and remembered them as friends, not enemies. Please, she had written in broken human language, my children will die when the power fails. We only need one small fusion cell to keep life support running. I know humans are good people. Please remember that some of us tried to speak for you in the council. Captain Cheung had stared at that message for a long time before deleting it. The Kardik had indeed voted against humanity despite some individual voices supporting human rights. But individual kindness could not overcome species wide bigotry. The galaxy that had once mocked human emotions for being too strong was now drowning in the very desperation they had dismissed as weakness. The species that had praised cold logic over warm feelings found themselves making increasingly irrational decisions as their civilizations crumbled. The Zentari Confederation made an official announcement that they would give humans complete control over 12 star systems if humans would agree to just one trade shipment. The Makari Union offered to become a human protectorate if humans would provide them with basic medical supplies. Most desperately, the Vorthan Empire announced that they would dissolve their government and accept human rule if human doctors would come to their worlds and fight the plague that was destroying their people. But human space remained silent. The species that had been the most social and communicative in the galaxy had become as unreachable as a distant star. In the human colony's life continued to improve without alien interference. Dr. Jawan was leading a research team on Kepler 452b that had just discovered a new form of faster than light travel that was twice as fast as anything aliens had ever built. The discovery was possible because humans no longer had to share their research with species who would have claimed credit for human work. Commander Minho was overseeing the construction of massive shipyards in the Proxima system, where humans were building the largest fleet in galactic history, the ships were more advanced than anything that had come before because human engineers could focus on human needs instead of meeting alien compatibility requirements. Most importantly, human society was becoming something new and stronger. The shared experience of rejection and withdrawal had united all human settlements in a way that had never existed before. Humans on the outer rim colonies felt as connected to Earth as if they lived next door. The aliens had thought they were teaching humans a lesson about knowing their place in the galactic order. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift possible: freedom from the obligation to care about people who did not care about them. As the desperate messages continued to pour in from dying alien civilizations, humans went about their business of building a better future for their own species. They had learned that sometimes the most powerful response to insult is not anger, but indifference. The galaxy had wanted humans to go away and stay quiet. Now they were learning what it felt like to be truly alone in the universe. And they were discovering that the humans they had dismissed as primitive were the only thing that had been holding their advanced civilization together. The silence from human space was not just the absence of communication. It was the sound of a species that had given up on trying to save people who did not want to be saved. And for the aliens who had driven them away, it was the most terrifying sound in the universe. Ambassador Hyen walked into the big round room where all the alien species met to talk about galaxy business. The room was huge, with seats going up like stairs in a circle, and each seat had a different kind of alien sitting in it. Some had tentacles. Some had 4 arms, some looked like giant bugs, and some were just floating balls of light. The air smelled weird, like mixing 20 different perfumes together, and the sounds were even stranger. Every alien made different noises when they talked. The translation machines worked hard to change all these sounds into words that humans could understand, but sometimes the machines made mistakes and said funny things. Shin had been coming to these meetings for 3 whole years, and every single time it was the same story. The aliens would talk about how great they were and how stupid humans were. They acted like humans were just dumb animals who somehow learned to build spaceships today. The Vorthan was speaking. The Vorthan looked like a giant octopus, but with 12 tentacles instead of 8, and each tentacle was as thick as a tree. His skin was purple and slimy, and when he got angry it turned dark red like it was doing. Right now the Vorthan slammed one of his big tentacles on the speaking table, making a loud, wet sound that echoed through the whole room. His voice came through the translation machine, sounding angry and mean. Humans are too violent, he said with his tentacles waving around. They fight too much. They are not smart enough to be part of our great galactic family. They should go back to their little planet and stop bothering the rest of us civilized beings. All around the room, other aliens started making their agreement sounds. Some clicked their claws. Others buzzed their wings, and the floating light balls just got brighter. The Kardec delegate, who looked like a giant praying mantis, nodded his triangular head up and down. The Rilun ambassador stood up next. She looked almost human, except she was blue and had gills on her neck, and her eyes were completely black. We have tried to be patient with the humans, she said in a voice that sounded like music, but mean music. The kind you hear in scary movies, but they just do not understand how things work in the galaxy. They want to do everything their own way. They do not listen to advice from species who have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. While humans were still living in caves, Dr. Minji, who was sitting next to Hyen, made a small angry sound. She was the smartest human scientist Hyen knew, and she had spent years trying to help these aliens solve their problems. But every time she offered to help, they acted like she was a child trying to help adults do grown-up work. The Zentari delegate spoke next. He was tall and thin, like a stick figure with golden skin that seemed to glow a little. Humans are unpredictable, he said. They do not follow proper procedures. They make decisions based on feelings instead of logic. This makes them dangerous to galactic peace and order. One by one, more aliens stood up to say bad things about humans. The Mokari said humans were too curious and asked too many questions. The Thrain said humans were too quick to help other species without thinking about consequences. The Velion said humans were too willing to fight to protect others. Each complaint made Hyen more angry, but he kept his face calm like a good diplomat should. He had learned long ago that showing anger would just make the aliens think they were right about humans being too emotional. Finally, it was time for the vote. The same vote they had every few months, the vote about whether humans should be allowed to do normal things in the galaxy like trade with other species or explore new planets or send ships through space lanes that everyone else could use. The Secretary General of the Council was a Nixarian who looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of water. His voice bubbled when he spoke. Now we vote on Resolution 847 to limit human expansion and trade privileges due to security concerns. 1 by 1 each species voted yes to limit what humans could do. The Vorthan voted yes with a loud slap of his tentacles. The Rillan voted yes with a musical sound. The Kardec clicked yes. The Zentari glowed brighter to show yes. Even species that humans had helped before voted yes. 47 species voted to make life harder for humans. Not one single alien voice spoke up to defend humanity. Not one alien remembered the times humans had shared their medicine or their food or their technology. Not one alien cared that humans had stopped 3 wars in the last 2 years just by talking to both sides. Shin watched the vote numbers appear on the big screen above the speaking area. 47 votes for limiting humans, 0 votes against, 0 votes to abstain. It was unanimous like always. Every single alien species agreed that humans were the problem. Dr. Minji leaned over and whispered very quietly, "They are voting to close the Kepler trade route to our ships again. That route is how we get the materials needed to make medicine for the colony world." Shin nodded, but did not say anything. He was thinking about all the times he had sat in this same chair listening to the same insults. He thought about how many human scientists had spent years working on alien problems for free. He thought about how many human doctors had saved alien lives. He thought about how many human engineers had fixed alien machines, but most of all he thought about how every time humans tried to make friends, these aliens acted like humans were too stupid to be worth their time. The Vorthan was still talking about the vote, making sure everyone understood why humans needed to be controlled. He used words like primitive and backward and dangerous. Every word felt like a slap in the face to Hyonthin. Something inside Hyen just broke. It was not anger exactly. It was more like being tired of trying to convince people who would never listen. It was like being tired of knocking on a door that would never open. Hyen stood up slowly. His chair made a small sound as he pushed it back. The movement was so quiet and simple that at first nobody noticed. But then the Vorthan stopped talking because he saw the human ambassador standing. The whole room got quiet. All 47 alien species turned to look at the human. Everyone expected Hyen to make another speech about how humans deserved better treatment. Everyone expected him to beg for another chance or to promise that humans would try harder to fit in. Instead, Hyen just looked around the room at all the different aliens. He looked at each species that had just voted against humanity. He looked at the Vorthan who had been insulting his people. He looked at the Secretary General floating in his tank. Then Hyen said just 4 simple words that would change everything. "We are done talking." The translation machines worked quickly to change his words into all the different alien languages. But even without translation, the meaning was clear. The Vorthan made a confused gurgling sound. "Done talking," he repeated through his translator. "What does that mean? You cannot just stop participating in galactic democracy." Bent down and picked up his papers and his electronic tablet. Dr. Minji understood what was happening and started gathering her things too. The Rillan delegate stood up, and her musical voice sounded worried. "You have responsibilities to the galactic community," she said. "You cannot just abandon your duty." Ishin looked right at her with eyes that were calm and cold. "Watch." "US," he said. Then he and Dr. Minji walked toward the big doors that led out of the council chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet room. Every alien watched them go. Some were confused, some were angry, and some were starting to look worried. As they reached the doors, Hyen turned around one last time to look at the 47 species that had just voted against humanity. "You will regret this," he said simply. Then he and Dr. Minji walked through the doors. The doors closed behind them with a deep booming sound that seemed to shake the whole station. And somewhere in that sound was the beginning of the end for the Galactic Alliance that thought it could survive without humanity. Admiral Sungwon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive battleship Terra's Fury, watching 3 different alien fleets moving toward each other in the Kepler 442 system. The system had valuable mining planets that 3 species all claimed. belonged to them. For years, human peacekeepers had kept these species from fighting by helping them share the resources fairly. Now there were no human peacekeepers. The three fleets were about to start a war that would spread across dozens of star systems. The Rillan Empire fleet had 60 warships arranged in their traditional diamond formation. The Zentari Confederation brought 40 ships that glowed with golden energy. The Mokari Union had 80 smaller but faster vessels that moved like a swarm of angry insects. Each fleet was convinced they had the right to claim the entire system. Each fleet remembered old insults and past conflicts that human diplomats had helped them forget. Each fleet was ready to fight to the death rather than share with their enemies. Sir, reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Minseo, we are receiving surrender requests from all three fleets. They want us to stop the battle before it starts. Admiral Sungwon almost smiled. The same aliens who had voted to limit human expansion were now begging humans to save them from each other. They had called human peacekeeping methods too aggressive and too interfering. Now they wanted that interference back. Send all requests to the diplomatic archive. He ordered, let them study our old peace proposals that they rejected on the main screen. Admiral Sungwon watched as the first shots were fired between the Rillan and Zentari fleets. Bright energy beams crossed the darkness of space, followed by missile trails and explosion flashes. Within minutes, all three fleets were fighting each other in a chaotic battle that would leave thousands dead. The human fleet stayed at the edge of the system, watching but not participating. Admiral Sungwon had orders to defend human territory if attacked, but not to interfere in alien conflicts, even if those conflicts happened right in front of him. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Kepler 442 system was filled with wreckage and debris. 2 of the mining planets had been bombed from orbit and were no longer habitable. The resources that all three species had fought over were now worthless. Similar scenes were happening all across the galaxy. In the Vega system, the Kardic and Thrain species were fighting over trade routes that humans had kept peaceful for decades. In the Arcturus region, 5 different species were at war over water rights that human engineers had solved with simple technology sharing. Dr. Sunwoo was monitoring the situation from the research station at Alpha Centauri. Her job was to track the collapse of galactic civilization and report on how it affected human interests. What she saw through the long-range sensors made her both sad and angry. The Great Kardic Research Station in the Vega system was slowly dying. The station housed 30,000 researchers and their families, but the fusion reactors that powered it were failing. The reactors used human technology and required human maintenance protocols that the Kardic had never bothered to learn. Dr. Sunwoo watched as the station sent increasingly desperate distress signals. The Kardic offered to share all their scientific knowledge if humans would just send one engineer to fix their reactors. They promised to vote for any human proposal in the Galactic Council. They begged and pleaded and offered everything they had. The human response was always the same: silence. Dr. Sunwoo knew that one human engineer could save 30,000 lives in less than a day. She also knew that the same Kardic had voted to restrict human trade routes just 10 months earlier. They had called humans too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology. Now they were dying because they could not maintain that same technology without human help. 3 days later, the Kardic Research Station went dark. 30,000 of the galaxy's greatest scientists were dead because their pride had prevented them from learning how their own technology worked on Earth. Professor Haniel was compiling reports from across the galaxy for the global government. Her job was to document the collapse of the Galactic Alliance and measure how quickly alien civilization was falling apart. The numbers were staggering. 17 active wars were raging across the galaxy, most of them between species that had been allies just months before. 43 major trade agreements had collapsed when the species involved could not agree on terms without human mediation. The galactic communication network was failing as security breaches increased without human encryption technology. Food shortages were reported on over 60 worlds that had relied on human agricultural assistance. Medical plagues were spreading unchecked on dozens of planets where human doctors had been providing care. Transportation between star systems was becoming dangerous as pirate attacks increased in areas where human patrols had kept the peace. The species that had dismissed Human diplomatic efforts, as crude and primitive, were now slaughtering each other over the same disputes that humans had peacefully resolved for years. The aliens who had praised their own advanced logic were making emotional decisions that led to disaster after disaster, most telling of all the neutral zones that had been carefully maintained by human peacekeepers were now active war zones. Old territorial disputes that had been settled were flaring up again as species tried to take advantage of the chaos. Professor Haniel's report to the Global Council was short and simple: the Galactic Alliance is collapsing faster than anyone predicted. At current rates of decline, organized interstellar civilization will cease to exist within 5 years. President Young-Soo read the report in her office, then looked out the window at the peaceful city below. In human space, things were very different. Without the need to maintain diplomatic relations with dozens of alien species, humans could focus on their own development. Human technology was advancing at an incredible rate. Free from alien regulations that had limited research, humans were making breakthrough discoveries every week. New types of faster-than-light travel, better weapons, more efficient manufacturing processes, cures for diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Human colonies were expanding rapidly into star systems that had been off-limits due to alien territorial claims. Now that humans no longer recognized alien authority, they could settle wherever they wanted. The galaxy was vast, and there was plenty of room for human expansion without needing to ask permission from anyone. Most importantly, human society was becoming stronger and more unified. The shared experience of being rejected by the galactic community had brought all human settlements closer together. Differences between Earth colonies and Outer Rim territories were forgotten as humanity faced the galaxy as one people. The aliens had thought they were punishing humans by limiting their participation in galactic affairs. Instead, they had freed humanity from the burden of trying to maintain peace. Among species that did not want peace, they had released humans from the obligation to help people who did not appreciate help. As Professor Haniel finished her report, she included one final observation. The aliens are learning too late that keeping galactic civilization functioning required more than just advanced technology. It required wisdom, compassion, and the willingness to work together for the common good. These were qualities that humans had tried to share, but which the aliens had rejected as primitive. Now they were discovering what the galaxy looked like without those primitive human qualities, and they were finally beginning to understand that they had made the greatest mistake in galactic history. Captain Ji-won was sitting in her command chair on the bridge of her exploration ship Seoul's Pride when the message came through. The ship was floating near a beautiful blue star in the neutral zone between human space and Cardic territory. Her crew had been working for months mapping new solar systems and looking for planets where humans could build new colonies. The message signal beeped 3 times, which meant it was urgent and came directly from Earth Command. Ji-won pressed the button to play the message, and Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was serious and his voice was calm, but Ji-won could hear something different in it, something that made her sit up straighter. All human vessels operating outside Seoul territory are ordered to return home immediately, he said. Operation Silent Dawn is now in effect. This means every ship, every station, every human working with alien species must come back to human space right now. No exceptions, no delays, no questions. The message continued with specific instructions about what to do with shared projects and joint missions. The orders were clear: destroy any research that aliens might use, pack up all human technology, and leave nothing behind that could help the species who had just voted against humanity. Ji-won turned to her navigation officer, Lieutenant Kyung, who had been listening with wide eyes. Set course for Seoul system maximum speed, she ordered. Then she pressed the ship-wide communication button to talk to her whole crew. Attention, all crew members, she announced. We are going home. All exploration missions are canceled. We will not be coming back to this area. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Daeho was working on a new type of engine that could travel faster than anything the aliens had ever built. When he heard the announcement, he stopped working and stared at the engine for a long moment. Then he started taking it apart piece by piece. He would not leave this technology for aliens to find and copy across the galaxy. The same scene was happening on hundreds of human ships. Crews received the recall order and immediately began the long Journey home, some ships were very far away, and it would take them months to reach human territory, but every single ship turned around and headed for home. At the Proxima Research Station, Dr. Soyang was working with a team of Zentari scientists trying to cure a disease that was killing people on 12 different worlds. The disease was very tricky and only human medical knowledge seemed able to fight it. The Zentari had been grateful for her help, even though they still voted against humans in the council. When Dr. Soyang got the recall order, she looked at her alien colleagues, who were depending on her research. She had spent 2 years working on this cure, and they were so close to finding the answer. But her orders were clear. Dr. Soyang began deleting all her research files from the computers. She destroyed her notes and packed up all the human medical equipment. The Zentari scientists watched in confusion as she erased years of work that could save millions of lives. Wait. The lead Zentari scientist said, his golden skin flickering with worry. You cannot just stop now. We are so close to solving this. We need your help. Dr. Soyang looked at him with sad eyes. You should have thought of that before you voted to limit our people, she said. Then she finished packing and left the station forever. On the great trading station at Volf 359, engineer Minho was in charge of maintaining the fusion reactors that powered the entire facility. The reactors used human technology that was much better than anything the aliens could build. The station housed over 50,000 aliens from 20 different species, and without the reactors they would all die in the cold of space. When Minho got the recall order, he started the complicated process of shutting down the reactors safely. He removed all the human control systems and took out the special parts that made the reactors work so well. The alien administrators watched nervously as their power systems began failing. You cannot leave us like this, the station commander said. He was a Mokari with 6 arms and blue fur. What will we do without these reactors? That is not my problem anymore, Minho replied as he packed the last of the human technology. You wanted us gone, now you're getting your wish. All across the galaxy humans were packing up and leaving. They took their medical technology that had been keeping alien hospitals running. They removed their communication systems that had been connecting distant worlds. They shut down their defense systems that had been protecting peaceful colonies. The work was not done in anger, but with cold efficiency. Every human followed their orders exactly. They left nothing useful behind, and they answered no questions from worried aliens, who were starting to realize what they were losing. Captain Chaeyoung commanded a patrol fleet that had been keeping peace in the disputed territories between the Rillan Empire and the Vorthan Confederation. For 3 years, her ships had prevented these two species from starting a war over mining rights. Her diplomats had worked day and night to solve problems before they became fights. When the recall order came, Captain Chaeyoung gathered her fleet and headed home. She left behind a region that had been peaceful for years, but was now without any peacekeepers. The Rillan and Vorthan forces looked at each other across the empty space where human ships used to patrol. Within days of the human withdrawal, the first shots were fired between Rillan and Vorthan ships. Within weeks, they were at full war on the colony world of New Seoul. Commander Dongyun was in charge of a joint defense force that protected 3 different alien settlements from pirates and raiders. The aliens had never thanked the humans for this protection and had actually complained that human methods were too violent. Commander Dongyun received his orders and began pulling all human troops off the planet. The alien governors came to his headquarters in panic, asking why the humans were leaving. Our protection was not wanted. He told them simply, you called our methods too violent, now you can handle the pirates yourselves, too. Weeks after the humans left, pirates attacked all 3 settlements. The aliens had no way to fight back and lost everything. Dr. Minsiak had been running a food distribution program that fed hungry people on 7 different worlds. Human agricultural technology could grow more food than anyone else, and Dr. Minsiak had been sharing this knowledge freely. The program fed over 10 million aliens. Every day, when the recall order came, Dr. Minsiak shut down all the food production facilities and took all the human farming equipment. The alien administrators begged him to stay, saying their people would starve without human help. You should have considered that before voting against us, Dr. Minsiak said as he loaded the last transport ship. Within 6 months, every human had left alien space. The galaxy that had been full of human ships and stations and bases suddenly became empty of human Presence, the species that had called humans too aggressive and too involved, now found themselves dealing with problems. They had forgotten how to solve communication networks that had used human encryption technology became vulnerable to attack. Transportation systems that relied on human efficiency programs began breaking down. Trade routes that human ships had kept safe became dangerous as pirates moved inmost. Importantly, the careful balance of power that human diplomats had maintained began falling apart. Old enemies started fighting again. Weak species found themselves without human protection. Strong species began taking advantage of their neighbors. The aliens had gotten exactly what they asked for, a galaxy without human interference. But as the months passed, they began to realize that human interference had been the only thing keeping their civilization from tearing itself apart. In human space, the colonies and stations buzzed with activity freed from alien restrictions and regulations. Human technology advanced faster than ever before. New inventions appeared every day. Faster ships, better weapons, more efficient systems. All the things that humans had been sharing freely with aliens were now kept for humans alone. The galaxy had wanted humans to go away. Now they were learning what life was like without them, and they were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Commander Dong-Yun stood on the observation deck of defense platform Alpha, orbiting Proxima Centauri, watching the edge of human space through the giant windows. The platform was one of 12 defense stations that protected the border between human territory and the rest of the galaxy. Each station was armed with the most advanced weapons humans had ever built, and each one sent a clear message to any alien ship that might approach. It had been 8 months since the last human ship crossed into alien space. 8 months since any human had spoken to any alien. 8 months of complete silence from the species that had once been the most social and helpful in the galaxy. Commander Dong-Yun checked his sensors for the 100th time. That day, no alien ships were trying to cross the border, but that was not because they did not want to. The sensors picked up dozens of alien vessels gathered just outside human space, sending message after message that went unanswered. Lieutenant Minseo walked up to him with a datapad full of intercepted alien communications. "Sir," she said, "the aliens are getting more desperate. They are offering us anything we want if we will just talk to them." Commander Dong-Yun took the datapad and read through the messages. The Vorthan were offering exclusive trade deals. The Rillan were promising to give humans full voting rights in the Galactic Council. The Zentari were offering to share their most advanced technology. All the things they had refused to give humans before were now being offered freely. Delete all the messages, he ordered. "We are not interested in what they have to offer on Earth." President Youngsu sat in her office in the global government building looking out at the city of Neo Geneva, where representatives from every human colony and station had gathered for an emergency session. The humans needed to decide what to do next. Now that they had left galactic politics behind, the decision had already been made, really. President Youngsu had just finished reading reports from every corner of human space. The message was clear from colony governors, fleet commanders, research directors, and ordinary citizens. Humanity was done trying to make friends with species that did not want their friendship. She activated the global communication system that would broadcast her words to every human settlement in the galaxy. "My fellow humans," she began, "we tried for years to be part of the galactic community. We offered our knowledge, our help, our friendship. We saved lives, stopped wars, and shared our technology freely. And what did we get in return?" She paused, letting her words sink in across human space. "We got insults, we got restrictions, we got treated like children who could not be trusted to make our own decisions. Well, they wanted us to go away, and we have gone away. Now they can solve their problems without our primitive interference." The policy President Youngsu announced was simple: complete non-engagement with all alien species. No trade, no communication, no cooperation. If aliens attacked human territory, humans would defend themselves, but they would not seek out conflict. They would not help aliens solve their problems. They would not rescue alien ships in trouble. They would not mediate alien disputes. From now on, she said, humans will focus on humans alone. Lieutenant Yaman worked in the intelligence center on Luna, monitoring alien communication channels. His job was to listen to what the aliens were saying to each other. Now that humans were no longer part of their conversations, what he heard made him both angry and satisfied. The Aliens were panicking without human peacekeepers to stop them. Old enemies were starting new wars without human technology to support them. Their infrastructure was failing. Without human mediation, their alliances were falling apart. The Vorthen, who had led the campaign against human participation, were now dealing with a plague that was killing millions of their people. It was the same plague that Dr. Minji and her team had been working to cure before the diplomatic breakdown. The Vorthen had rejected human medical help as primitive, but now they had no cure and their people were dying. Lieutenant Yemen intercepted desperate messages from Vorthen leaders begging for human medical assistance. They offered to pay any price, give any concession if humans would just help save their people. The response from Earth Command was always the same: no response at all. Captain Yunwoo commanded a merchant fleet that had been carrying rare minerals and manufactured goods between human and alien worlds for 15 years. His ships were specially designed to carry the kinds of materials that alien technology needed to function properly. Now his entire fleet sat in dock at the Tau Ceti trading station with their cargo holds full of goods that 17 different alien species desperately needed. Every day Captain Hyunwoo received hundreds of purchase requests from alien buyers. The offers got bigger and more desperate each day. Some aliens offered to pay 10 times the normal price. Others offered to trade their most advanced weapons or ships. Some even offered to give humans entire planets in exchange for a single shipment of rare earth elements. Captain Hyunwoo read each offer carefully, then deleted it without responding. His orders were clear: no trade with aliens under any circumstances. Engineer Soman was working on the new human colonies in the Kepler system when she detected alien ships approaching the border. The ships were broadcasting emergency signals saying they needed help with a reactor failure that would kill everyone aboard if it was not fixed soon. The aliens were using human-designed reactors that only human engineers knew how to repair properly. The emergency was real and 3,000 aliens would die if they did not get help within 6 hours. Engineer Soman had the knowledge and equipment to save them. It would take her less than an hour to fix their reactor, but her orders were clear: no assistance to alien vessels. She watched on her sensors as the alien ship drifted helplessly in space, knowing that everyone aboard would soon be dead. The aliens sent personal messages pleading for help. They sent pictures of their families. They promised to do anything if humans would just save their lives. Engineer Soman turned off her communication system and went back to work on the human colony. The alien ship disappeared from her sensors. 6 hours later, all across human space, the same scene played out again and again. Aliens in desperate need of help being ignored by humans who had the power to save them. It was not cruelty that made humans turn away, it was justice. The same aliens who had called humans primitive and dangerous were now learning what life was like without human help. Meanwhile, human space was thriving without alien regulations limiting their research. Humans developed new technologies at an incredible pace without alien trade requirements draining their resources. Human colonies expanded rapidly. Without alien politics distracting them, humans focused on building a better future for their own species. The galaxy that had mocked human emotions was now drowning in desperation. The species that had praised logic over feeling were making increasingly desperate and illogical offers to get human attention, but the humans remained silent. They had tried talking and been ignored. They had tried helping and been insulted. They had tried friendship and been rejected. Now they were showing the galaxy what it was like to be truly alone, and the aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had lost when they drove humanity away.